Well, joining us now is Jeff Barak. He's a columnist and the former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. And Jeff, a lot of questions being asked about the wisdom, not only of Avi Gabbay basically dumping Tzipi Livni, but the way he did it.
Yes, and I think the way he did it is going to cost him. It was brutal and I think unnecessary. If he wanted to disband the partnership with Tzipi Livni and her members of Knesset, he could have done it in a meeting between the two of them. To do it in public, live television, it's a humiliation. I think women voters will take a look at that and say, you know what, perhaps Avi Gabbay is not the person I want to vote for.
Right, to make a move like that, really for the purpose, the stated purpose of humiliation and revenge, beyond the way he did it. Now, having made that decision, what do you think this means for what has been the most prominent, really the opposition party standing against Netanyahu?
Well, I think it really does spell the end, I think, of the Labour Party. I think it's hard to see how they're going to do well in this coming election, except, and perhaps this was Gabbay's point, they team up with former IDF Chief of Staff Benny Gantz. I think Tzipi Livni has always been identified in people's eyes with the left since she moved in her political career. She moved from the right to Kadima and then to the Labour Party, and she became seen as the left of the Labour Party. With her gone, I think Gabbay is going to be pushing very hard on Benny Gantz to say, without Tzipi Livni, perhaps you can now come and join us.
Jeff, who benefits from this turmoil in the now Labour Party? We did see, for example, Yair Lapid, who's trying to occupy the sort of centre position. Is this going to help him in any way?
I think it will help him, or show that Yesh Atid, the party that Lapid is running, is stable. It's got a consistent leadership for the past 3 elections now. He's now an experienced politician. At one point he was a novelty. Now he's no longer a novelty, but he'll be able to come to the voters saying, look, I've been in government, I've been in opposition, I know how to run things. Look at Labour, look at Gabbay, he can't even run his own team. If you're disappointed in Netanyahu, come and vote for me. And
bringing in a prominent female public figure for first major general in military experience on the very day that Avi Gabbay is dropping and, as you mentioned, even humiliating one of the most prominent female politicians in the country.
Yes, I think it's a smart move on Lapid's part. He's going to present himself as the opposition to Netanyahu.
But, Jeff, the Israeli opposition is still so deeply fractured, to say that is sort of an understatement, and they have not managed to beat the right for decades. Do you see any possible combination, all these different parties, all these different candidates, that could actually give Netanyahu a run for his money?
Well, we still have, I think it's around 50 days before parties have to file for running in the election. So that gives the left some time to sit down and decide where it's going. I'd be interested to know what Ehud Barak is thinking.
The former chief of staff, and of course he was a prime minister and defense minister.
Vocal critic of Netanyahu.
Vocal critic of Netanyahu. Still a somewhat controversial figure. Where do you think he's going to end up?
Well, I find it hard to believe that he's going to sit on the sidelines on this one. He's beaten Netanyahu once back in 1999. He's been the most vocal opposition to Netanyahu on social media this past year. And I think Livni, first of all, what annoyed Gabbay, I think, was the fact that she was holding talks with Ehud Barak behind his back. I'm sure one of the first people that Tzipi Livni called after what happened today, or perhaps he called her, was Ehud Barak. And I think they're now talking about how to set up a new left-of-centre party.
Before we wrap, your take on a man who's already mentioned here, the former chief of staff, Benny Gantz. He's sort of seen as a potential dark horse, as maybe the guy who could finally unseat Netanyahu, but nobody knows exactly where he stands. Where do you think he's going to sort of pan out in this race?
Well, I'm not holding any great hopes for Benny Gantz.
Really? Many others are.
I think that's out of desperation. There's a lot of people who want to see Netanyahu brought down, and they're reaching out for anybody who they think can do it. But Gantz, you know, 100 days before the election, as you said, who is he? What does he stand for? Nobody knows this. I suspect he'll be running on another centrist platform, and I'm not sure that's enough to attract the voters.
Well, polls, though, are showing him that his party, a party headed by him, would come in second to Likud. You do expect those numbers to drop once he starts defining his position?
Carving because at the moment he said nothing, so nobody can be offended by what is said. He can be something for everybody. The minute his election campaign starts, he has to carve out a niche for himself, and that will antagonize people.
All right, a long road ahead for the opposition facing Netanyahu, who's running for his 4th consecutive term.